Of course, once you've got that app available, you can check us out. And of course, again, that is 724 0008. Again, 724 0008. Now, today we want to send out some birthday greetings to some good people. First, to a member of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. In fact, he heads the police's community relations branch, and he is Mr. Zachary Hippolyte. Happy birthday to you, sir, and we hope that you're having a fantastic birthday celebration. We also want to send out some birthday greetings to Ain Emmanuel. Happy birthday to you, Ain, and we do hope that you're having a splendid birthday as well. And also, birthday greetings have to go out to Esteban. Many of you would know him from his forays into soca. And Esteban is celebrating his birthday today, and we hope it is a fantastic one indeed. 5th of November, some history going back in time. In 1492, on this day, Christopher Columbus learned how to grow and harvest maize or corn from Cuba's indigenous population. In the year 1605, on this day, well, remember that famous little line, remember the 5th of November? Well, Catholic conspirator Guy Fawkes attempted to blow up King James I and the British Parliament in what was known as the Gunpowder Plot. The plot was discovered, and Guy Fawkes was caught, tortured, and later executed with 7 others, and celebrated ever since as Guy Fawkes Day today, with his effigy traditionally burned on a bonfire accompanied by fireworks. 1937, on this day, saw Adolf Hitler informing his military leaders in a secret meeting of his intention to go to war. 1956, on this day, Britain and France land airborne forces at Port Said in Egypt, escalating the Suez Crisis. And in 1979, on this day, Supreme Leader of Iran, Ayatollah Khomeini, described the United States as the Great Satan amid accusations of imperialism and the sponsoring of corruption. And also, 1956, on this day, the Nat King Cole Show debuted on NBC, and it was the first variety program to be hosted by an African American. And also, if you're interested in chess history, in 1992, on this day, American chess grandmaster Bobby Fischer defeated Russian Boris Spassky in an unofficial match in Belgrade, dubbed the revenge match of the 20th century. We now move on to our dish of the day. The Daily Dish is brought to you with the kind compliments of our good friends at Tiles Plus.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Because you've unbeatable cost. Customer service, A plus, need all kind of tiles. Come down to Tiles Plus. We also got gasware and vanity. Books, doors, you'll see. Come down to mind nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses Grocery Lane, and Slack Street in Beaufort. Telephone number 453-7939. Tiles Plus.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome back to our program here today at the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. Now, of course, all eyes around the world are no doubt glued to what will become the outcome of the world's perhaps most important election for the year 2024. We've seen quite a number of polls happening all around the world, and of course, we're seeing how democracy has been at work. We've seen it in countries like South Africa, for example, after almost a continuous 3 decades of ANC outright majorities. We saw what occurred over there with the need for creation of a government of national unity when the African National Congress was not able for the first time to actually achieve an outright parliamentary mandate. We've seen interesting situations as well, even for Narendra Modi over in the world's most populous democracy. And some may even say it perhaps is the world's most populous country by now as well, that of India. And he also and his party, the BJP, going to the polls expecting an outright win and not achieving that either. And so many other outcomes of polls, of course, in the United Kingdom, a Labour government returning after so many years in the wilderness, with Keir Starmer leading them to what is perhaps one of the largest majorities in quite some time in living memory, and certainly sending the Conservatives into a very interesting state in which they have now, in fact, elected the first black woman to lead a political party in the United Kingdom, that of Kemi Badenoch, somebody who is of Nigerian descent. And now, in the mix, and of course, as I said, so many other elections from Moldova to I think was it Romania recently. You've seen elections all over the world, and now, of course, the world's most powerful country, the world's superpower, is going to the polls to elect what is perhaps effectively the most powerful person in the world. And it may very well be history being made tonight that the world's most powerful person will, for the first time, be a woman. And of course, the United States has not broken that ceiling, as many, many other countries have had over the years, being able to elect women prime ministers or women presidents over the years. And there have been some very notable ones, of course, even right here in the Caribbean, in the Eastern Caribbean. Dame Eugenia Charles, known by many as the Iron Lady of the Caribbean, and of course, very famously, Margaret Thatcher led the the United Kingdom for a good number of years, conservative leader there, and many, many others in many different countries have been able to achieve that. Some in countries we may not always think of as being so progressive, but certainly in the case of countries like Sri Lanka, or Ceylon, as it was known under colonial times. You've had leaders such as Indira Gandhi in India, which we just made mention of. In places like Israel, they've been able to achieve that through Golda Meir, who held the government for about 5 years as prime minister. Some have been pretty famous. They followed their husbands into politics, like that of Isabel Perón in Argentina. We have seen, especially in the Nordic countries, quite a number of female prime ministers over the years, from Iceland to Norway, and Finland recently as well. So certainly we've seen a fairly large number of countries where, in fact, either the prime minister or the president has, in fact, been a lady. Of course, the issue of the rights to vote for women has been one which we've seen in place in many places for about, well, not many, but since about 100 years ago. I think in the case of New Zealand, they were the first country to allow women the right to vote. And since then, we've seen a number of Kiwi prime ministers being ladies, being women. We may remember Helen Clark. You may remember, of course, a lot more recently. We had a another. In fact, she was, I believe, one of the youngest individuals to have actually held that office. Of course, the likes of even in Taiwan with Tsai Ing-wen recently. And the name that I was trying to remember for New Zealand is Jacinda Ardern, who in fact was also one of the first, I believe, the first prime minister, at least in the case of New Zealand and maybe in the Commonwealth, to in fact be expecting and give birth during her time. And of course, right here again in the Caribbean, the likes of Mia Motley, who, of course, has distinguished herself at the global level for quite some time in terms of her wonderful oration. And so there's a lot of examples of women who are, in fact, at that highest level. But unfortunately, in the case of the United States, it has never happened. And it's rather interesting, of course, that we are now at this point in 2024 that we may very well finally see a woman becoming the head of state of the United States. And of course, she is the current vice president of the United States, Kamala Harris. And what is also most remarkable about this feat, if and when it happens, is that she is also a woman of color. And so it is going to be very, very telling, of course, for a country like the United States, effectively almost a bit of a watershed moment, for it to decide whether it is going to go back to Donald Trump, who has perhaps been by far the most controversial of US presidents ever, by virtue of the things that he has said and the things that he has done, his positions on many, many different issues have effectively labeled him as a lot of things. He's been accused of being racist, being a bigot. He has certainly not made many friends for the United States. But he has, despite all the odds, still been able to uh, effectively achieve the endorsement of the Republican Party, one of the two leading parties, of course, in the United States, and he has put himself back up in the race, of course, after going through a term and losing and not accepting the loss, leading to a significant issue in terms of January the 6th and the storming of the United States Congress. I mean, when you really sit back and look at all of this is quite a telling story that Mr. Trump can still put himself up for re-election. And it certainly says a lot about politics. It certainly says how it is so quite easy for individuals to dismiss things that have gone on in the past and to be able to almost effectively come with a and to present themselves almost as if they've got a clean slate. And this is, of course, a very, very telling story at this point. But it's also interesting how it is, in fact, exposing a lot of still to this day deep-seated issues of prejudice that exist in the world. And we're seeing it even in respect of Kamala, not because she is African American or not because she is Indian, but largely because she's a woman. And so there are still in some cultures, the place of women still has not gotten to this point of equality in terms of the mindset of individuals, particularly men, to have confidence in women at the top. And that, of course, is a still a big issue around the world. Of course, right here in St. Lucia, we perhaps are not so much better off than the United States in that our history thus far, although we are much, much, much younger democracy, in fairness, that we've not yet been have made that leap in terms of putting a woman at the top of the country's leadership. Albeit, of course, yes, we have had governor general, and we've got women who've served as presidents of the Senate and speakers of the House. But these, of course, have all been appointed positions. So, in terms of the electorate going out and electing women, that is still something we have not yet been able to achieve in terms of the political leadership of the country. So, in the case of course, of the United States, it is certainly a major day, a significant day in many, many different respects. If in fact she is going to be able to make this achievement, and I was making the point, of course, that with respect to uh, how she is viewed, even amongst some of the Indian American population. And when we speak of Indian Americans, we're speaking about persons of Asian descent or recent Asian ancestry coming out of the Indian subcontinent, i.e., India, but also Bangladesh and also Pakistan, which effectively was all India, ethnically and to some degree as well culturally. So you're still having, of course, a significant number of individuals, whereas you may think that let's say 90% of the population may decide that they were going to be supporting Kamala on that basis, right? The Asian population, the South Asian and Indian population is actually not so significantly skewed. I think about 2/3, according to polls, of persons of Asian American descent are in fact supporting Kamala. In the case of the African American vote, that is, I believe, somewhere in the high 80s, according to what we're seeing. But there are, of course, still gaps, and there's still areas where people, of course, are not going to be supporting. And of course, that is the reality of politics. It's unlikely that you're going to get a complete 100% of any group supporting one another. Certainly, even in the case of St. Lucia, today I was, out and about, and I met an individual who I know actually, and he was wearing his Trump hat. He was wearing a Trump cap on. Quite interesting indeed. And was of the opinion that the left is the problem with the world right about now, and that he, in fact, supports Trump. And there are, as well, a fair number of people from the West Indies who are, in fact, supporting Mr. Donald Trump. And of course, that is the nature of politics. What it's actually, in fact, is interesting about this instance in particular is that how close the race has been. It has really been nail biting. It has been so for quite some time. And yes, Kamala came in fairly late in the game, but I know for a lot of people, they would still be thinking that they can't understand how it is possible that an individual with a record like Mr. Trump is still so vastly popular within the United States of America. And he is, in fact, being able to pull out support from very, very interesting demographics as well. So it is certainly a very telling time that we live in when we're seeing what are some of the dividing issues across the country at this point in time. And of course, although we're very, very much focused on the presidential race, let's not forget that the US system is a little bit more complicated than that, of course. The separations of powers, you have a legislative election, you've got a executive election or presidential election if you prefer. All right. And of course, you've got the judiciary that is elected, even separate and apart from that. But the population goes out, and the average American has the right, citizen has the right to elect directly his or her head of state, as well as who that individual wants to serve in the lower house, right, or the House of Representatives, as well as the upper house or the Senate of the United States of America. And of course, the system that they have has been so designed to ensure that even though you may have a president who is from one party, that does not necessarily mean that that party will in fact control the legislative power. And of course, as a result of that, it therefore means that you have to be able to negotiate. You've got to find balancing points. You've got to deal with issues at different levels. And so, whereas the president may have federal level issues, issues that are, of course, very important at that level, at a global level, if you like, but as well, although also at the federal level, yes, but in terms of representation of the interests of the state by these representatives coming from into Congress, that too is of course also very different. So it is certainly a pretty important day in that regard. And of course, quite a number of people have already gone out to vote. They've been going out to vote thanks to early voting options. But certainly still a number will still be going out to and trying to get the vote out. Individuals who were still on the edge, who are not sure about where their support is. And so that's why it's really, really critical in terms of even the election on the day. So, as I mentioned, the Senate, 100 members. I'm not too sure. I'll have to check to see the exact number who are up for re-election at this time, but usually it is a proportion of it. So, and then of course, as well, the same with respect to the House, where there are 435 representatives to be elected. So that is how it is going to be split up. I think right now the need is for 218 seats for a majority in the House, and as it stands, the Republicans have 220 seats to the 212 seats held by the Democrats. And so there is, of course, a gap there, which the Democratic Party would have to try to effectively flip some seats, and to see how they can, in fact, achieve that. It's going to be pretty telling. Of course, there are some also individuals who are going to be retiring. I think there are about a total of 46 representatives who are, in fact, retiring. And so, of course, it'll be very, very interesting to see how that race also pans out over the course of the day. And, of course, tonight, no doubt, lots of people will be glued to seeing the actual outcomes. As I said as well, it's an interesting country, and in fact, some of the places, very small precincts like those in New Hampshire have already counted votes, and there used to be a tradition at one point of having midnight voting, and that still exists in I think just very, very few of these precincts. Where I think in one instance, a place called, I think, Dixville Notch, only 6 people living there, and the outcome there was interesting. It was pretty much a parallel of what it seems to be happening at the national level. 3 persons voted for Kamala Harris, 3 for Donald Trump. So it's one of those elections that we'll have to see down to the wire in terms of the votes, and it really has shown the importance of perhaps just a few people going out and effectively making the difference and effectively determining the outcome of the world's biggest political contest for the year 2024. That's our dish of the day. And when we come back, we'll take in our weather report, and then we've got a few videos which we wanted to actually share with you as well on the election, but we'll also try to take in some calls.
This has been The Daily Dish.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Because with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+. Need all kind of tiles. Come down to Tiles Plus. We also got gasware and vanity. Books, doors, you'll see. Come down to mind nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses Brazil, and Flag Street in Viewfort. Telephone number 453-7939.
Island style, yeah. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We'll have to make the right choice. Island style, whoa. We got the time that will make you happy. Island style, oh yeah. We make your dream come alive in Island style.
We have tiles and king sets, pieces and ground. Everything you need is on the house out. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. Quality, price, service, choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Bellarosa, Rodney Bay, on the John Compton Highway, Castries, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewfort Highway. So call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style, Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
And that's on the coast of the Warport Report. It's now time for your weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Talent Bar. The forecast for St. Lucia Valley for the next 24 hours. Winds will be blowing from the east near 16 miles per hour or 26 kilometers per hour. The weather fair to occasionally cloudy with a few showers. The forecast for Los Angeles fair to occasionally cloudy with widely scattered showers and a chance of isolated thunderstorms. And the tropical weather outlook, low atmosphere over the eastern Caribbean region remains sufficiently moist and unstable to continue to produce occasional cloudiness with scattered showers and possibly isolated thunderstorms over the Los Angeles during the forecast period. Also, light to moderate easterly and northeasterly winds will continue across the eastern Caribbean region during the next few days. A tropical wave located over the central tropical Atlantic is moving westward near 10 miles per hour or 17 kilometers per hour. This wave is expected over the Los Angeles by Wednesday into Thursday. And this was the weather forecast as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Talent Bar.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Island island style. Oh, yeah. We got the time to make you go. Oh. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We'll have to make the right choice. Island style. Whoa. We got the time that will make you happy. Island style. Oh, yeah. We make your dream come alive in island style.
We have tiles and king sets, pieces and ground. Everything you need is on the house out. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style car.
We got the time to make you go. Oh. We got the time to make you say, yeah. Quality rice, service choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Belarus and Rodney Bay on the John Compton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewfort Highway. Or call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style, tile and bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
And welcome back to our program here at the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. Now, of course, there's also a developing story coming out of Antigua and Barbuda, quite an unfortunate one, that of the body of former member of parliament, well, sitting member of parliament, Mr. Asot Michael, being found at his home lifeless, and the police have in fact begun an investigation of what is being considered a possible homicide. Mr. Asot Michael was a member of parliament for St. Peter. He also served as the Minister of Tourism, Economic Development, Investment, and Energy under Prime Minister Gaston Brown. In fact, he was formerly a member of the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party. And in the last general election, he in fact became, well, he was expelled from the ABLP and ran successfully as an independent, in fact, being able to win his seat. And so, of course, rather interesting development indeed over in Antigua and Barbuda. Just very quickly to read a bit about him. Asot Michael was born in Guadeloupe in the French West Indies on the 21st of December 1969 in an economic and political Antiguan family. His grandfather, Asot A. Michael, and his father, Patrick Michael, were business people supporting the ruling Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party. Attended the St. Joseph's Academy in St. John's, Antigua, and for his secondary education. Michael obtained a BS in Business Administration from Barry Universities in Miami in 1989 and an MBA from University of Miami in 1991. After completing his studies, Michael returned to Antigua to work at Asot's Arcade, a family business named for his late grandfather. In 1995, Michael began his first job in government as a special administrative assistant to then Prime Minister Lester Bird, and was eventually appointed Bird's chief of staff in 1997. After that, Michael was appointed a government senator in 1999, as well as Minister of State in the office of the Prime Minister, overseeing responsibilities for public works, communications, insurance, energy, and St. John's Development Corporation. He continued in that role until 2001. He then became a full minister responsible for these portfolios until 2003. Also in 2001, he was appointed Junior Minister of Finance until 2003. From 1999 to 2003, Michael served as leader of government business in the Senate. Michael was first elected to the House of Representatives for the constituency of St. Peter in 2004. He belonged to the Antigua Labour Party during his elections of 2004 and 2009 until the party transitioned to the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party when he was re-elected in 2014 and 2018. In 2016, the Caribbean Journal awarded Michael with the Best Tourism Minister Award for the entire Caribbean. On the 23rd of October 2017, he was detained at Heathrow Airport while in transit to a citizenship by investment conference in France, being accused of having requested bribes from a British investor in 2016. While being interviewed by UK authorities, Prime Minister Gaston Brown removed him as Minister of Tourism, Economic Development, Investment, and Energy, despite Michael denying any wrongdoing. Michael was re-elected in March 2018, garnering 78% of votes and assigned the portfolio of investment and trade by Prime Minister Gaston Brown. In 2018, Michael was accused by British investor Peter Verde of Michael's involvement in a bribery scheme. Michael denied soliciting bribes and said the original detention was for the purpose of an interview with the police. Following the resignation, Prime Minister Gaston Brown said, unfortunately, Michael has a legal issue he has to dispense with, and as soon as he's able to do so, we look forward to his return to the government to make his contribution. Michael resigned his position on the 15th of May 2018. Michael returned as an MP in 2018 and served in his role as Minister of Investment and Trade in 2019. Prime Minister Brown stated that Michael was not only a great asset to the government and the ABLP, but that he had made a tremendous contribution to Antigua and Barbuda. So certainly a very interesting and developing story over in Antigua and Barbuda. Also, right here in St. Lucia, the Minister for Youth Development and Sport has been refuting claims that were made regarding the matter of school sports. And that was following a story coming out about the suspension of school sports. Now that story had come out sometime, I think maybe 2 weeks ago almost. But then in addition to that, there was in fact a press conference held by the Ministry of Youth Development and Sport trying to explain that the issue was with respect to timing, and that some of the sports would have in fact been shifted to the second and third terms. Now, you would recall, or you may know, that the athletics competitions have always been in the second term. So the sports that we are talking about are really some of the team sports, like that of football, as well, I think basketball, netball, would have been some of the sports that would have been impacted. Some would have continued, I think, in an abridged form and what have you. But of course, the nature of these matters is that we always have politics at play. And in a press conference, the opposition public relations officer, Mr. Leonard Montoute, suggested that, in fact, the reason why the school sports was not happening was because of financing, monies not being available for school sports. That has been refuted by the Honorable Kenson Kazemi, Minister for Youth Development and Sport, effectively saying that that's pretty much an outright lie, and that, in fact, that is not the case. So, of course, we'll have to continue to see how those matters tend to pan out. But no doubt about it, we would like to see a successful school sports term, especially given all that has occurred in this year with respect to St. Lucia and its success on the track and in other sporting endeavors. So certainly it's a time for sport to be soaring, and we do hope that that goes pretty well. There's an actual story that we'll share, but we're trying to get through quite a bit now. Following up with respect to American politics, as you would know, you've been hearing some figures bandied around, the whole idea of the Electoral College, and that you've got to get to the 270. So this has been an issue that has been raised quite a number of times. even though you may win the popular vote in the United States of America, you may not necessarily win the election. So you may get the most votes at a national level if you count all the votes put together, but that is not how it is. It is done. You've got to look at each state, and effectively, each state has a portion to it, a certain number um, of members of the electoral college. So they each have a weighting, effectively, and of course, it's somewhat tries to follow the size of the states to some degree, but of course, it's not a perfect system in that regard. And so you got 538 members of the electoral college, and of course, in most instances, it is outright. Even though you may have won 50% plus one of the of within that state, you still, in let's say in the state of Montana, where you have four members of the electoral college, you would think, okay, well, you know what, we divide it up in two. It's proportional, but it doesn't work that way. It's a sort of a winner takes all system on a state by state level, with a few exceptions where, in fact, there is some level of proportionality. I think in Nebraska, for example, that exists. So certainly, this is why we've been seeing quite a lot of interest with respect to particular states within this mix, because effectively, what each candidate has to do is to pick up these electoral college votes, and it's already pretty much spread out in almost a sort of a fixed situation. They all, what we would say as safe seats, so to speak. So, for all intents and purposes, New York, for example, those 28 electoral college votes will invariably be going to a Democratic Party winner. It's not to say that everybody in New York, of course, is supporting Kamala Harris or the Democratic Party, but the majority do by a fairly large margin. And although the margin doesn't really matter, and she will in fact be getting those 28 votes. And so the same can be said for places like Massachusetts, which is again very traditionally Democratic. And so the spread out of the voting as well across the country means that she'll be looking to rack up the votes in New England, and as well on the Pacific Coast, very famously, of course, where she comes from in California. They, in fact, have the highest weighting of electoral college votes, 54. As well, she'd be looking to win Oregon and Washington states as well. Now, of course, Mr. Trump, on the other side of things, is quite likely to pull out most of what would be the agricultural belt, the rural states, the more rural states, that is, as well as the southern states, places like Texas, for example, even Alabama and Mississippi. They, in as much as there's a fairly large African American population, there's still not enough to change the fortunes of a Democrat running in some of those states. So certainly, he can certainly look to some of these, the Kentuckys and the Tennessees and the Dakotas and Idahos and those types of states with certainty that he's going to be pulling in those. Florida has been a bit of a toss-up in the past, but over the past couple electoral cycles, it has been squarely a red state. And that has, again, the demographic changes that have been going on in some of these states are potentially going to make them very interesting in the years to come. Florida became more red over the past decade or so. Lots of individuals coming into that state, a lot of Hispanics coming into that state. A lot of them are actually supporting Trump, supporting the Republican Party. Whereas, with respect to the state of Texas, that also changing tremendously. It's one of those growth areas for the United States of America right now. That Sun Belt region is seeing lots of people migrating towards it. In fact, lots of migration from California to Texas because the cost of living differential is in the favor of Texas. People are looking for that affordability. Housing affordability is a big issue with California, and so people are moving there, and so it's becoming more of a tech scene in Texas and cities like Dallas and Austin, and so as a result of that, these urban areas are in fact shifting the possibility that Texas may very well, maybe in next 3 electoral cycles, could very well be a blue state. And so this shift in population, of course, as if all places, it can potentially lead to shifts in outcomes of the election. But as it is right now, Mr. Trump can look comfortably towards Texas as, in fact, being a safe seat for him. Of course, therefore, many of these these two candidates, these two presidential candidates, are looking to these swing states where it is very, very close. The margins are small, and it's going to be very much perhaps down to, who knows, maybe even a couple hundred votes in some areas, because it is such a neck and neck race at this point in time. And the very famous blue wall of the Democrats, or rather, what was the part of the wall that Trump was able to take down and bring onto his side when he won. They, of course, are eyeing them very critically at this point in time, specifically Michigan and Pennsylvania. And we've seen, of course, the impact of economic issues in those places, the quote-unquote Rust Belt, as it was known, because of its high level of industry, and especially in the case of Michigan, in the automotive industry, in that of Pennsylvania, machinery and steel, and there's a lot of industry that has in fact been lost in those states, and that has had an impact, of course, on the politics in those areas, and has made, in fact, Trump and his message on issues such as immigration, his messages on issues such as who's to be blamed for the economic hardships that these individuals are going through, who is coming and quote unquote taking their jobs, and of course his stance on foreign policy and dealing with issues like China, of course, which is the significant counter to the United States right about now in terms of economic strength. That, of course, makes Trump seem very popular among some individuals in those states. So whereas they were traditionally blue states, they certainly are no longer guaranteed. And this is where it is down to the wire. And for Kamala Harris to win, she would certainly have to win one of the two, whether it's going into Michigan with their 15 electoral college votes, or most critically, Pennsylvania with its 19 electoral college votes. I think we do actually have a video available, which actually gives a little bit of an explanation as to how the entire system works, and it actually comes from France 24. So let's take a listen at this time. Right, so that just a very short overview there to give some sense of what things will be like in terms of course, and at the end of the day, those individuals who form that electoral college, well, pretty much um, go and ceremonially, cast their vote in favor of um, whoever their state has decided to win. So, of course, it is certainly a very, very interesting race. Some people are still giving, well, they say that the bettors are giving Trump the odds, and some others, of course, are still giving predictions of Harris the odds as well. Notably, she was ahead in a poll yesterday in the state of Iowa, which, of course, was not one of those states which she was looking at all to be able to actually bring across. It has been pretty much um, a state that has been supporting uh, Trump, and it has 6 electoral votes. So it'll be interesting to see whether, in fact, she can pull in some of these additional seats, additional electoral college votes at the end of the night. So we'll have to wait and see, anxiously, no doubt, as to the outcome of what happens tonight by the end of the night in the United States of America. Let's hope that whoever is, in fact, elected is, in fact, that vote is accepted by all which of course was not the case in the last, the 2020 vote. And let's hope that we don't see any significant disruptions in the entire process, that law and order is respected at this time. That's our program for today here at the Lunchroom. And of course, we hope that you can join us again tomorrow for another one. We're going to have some guests in to touch on a matter of health from the Ministry of Health, of course. And we hope you can also join us for the recap, the results of the elections over in the United States tomorrow. I'm your host, Calix George Jr., saying goodbye.